So Wellness KE is actually a passion project. And the reason why it's a passion project is because personally I went through sickness. So I was very unwell for so many years and I had fibroids. And I'm sure right now any woman who's watching, when they hear the word fibroids, they actually either have had fibroids or they know someone who has had fibroids. And unfortunately, the statistics are proving that 1 in 2 women actually have fibroids. And if it's not 1 in 2, then the rest actually don't even know that they have them. So when I had fibroids, it actually happened to me when I was 21 years old. And I'm 35 right now. So that was many years ago, but I had them for so many years, because when I was diagnosed, it was actually a really tiny fibroid. And the doctor told me that it was a pea-sized fibroid, and I don't necessarily need to do anything about it. So I listened to him and I went on living my life. We didn't do anything about the fibroid. And in the process of living my life, unfortunately, what happened was the fibroids increased in size and increased in number. And at that time, I didn't know what I was supposed to do to avoid that. So if I had a platform like Wellness KE at that time, I would have avoided getting sicker, because I ended up having many fibroids. When I had my surgery, I had 23 fibroids removed. And also I ended up being diagnosed with deep vein thrombosis, which is a blood clot. And it came about because I had high estrogen levels, but I didn't know at that time. You see, I would go to different hospitals and ask different doctors, and I would be like, why do I have a blood clot? And actually the closest that I came to the answer was one doctor who said, because your fibroids are large and there are many, they're actually disrupting circulation. So that's why you have a clot. But I ended up doing more research, and I discovered that when a woman has fibroids, they have high estrogen levels, and when you have high estrogen levels, it causes blood clots. So the thing is that when I was 21, at that time, I remember I was very active, always fit, I took care of myself, but whenever I would do any type of exercise, I used to feel something in my abdomen. It was something a bit hard, and I didn't understand, almost like as if I had a tiny pebble or a stone in my stomach, yeah? So that used to worry me because I didn't understand. I was not sick, but I just felt that mass there. And so what I did was I decided to go to the hospital and actually get that checked. So I went into a hospital, general hospital, and they told me you actually have to go and see a gynecologist, which I'm sure women understand that's the specialist that's supposed to take care of women's health issues. So I went in, I saw a gynecologist. That was my first time to ever see a gynecologist. And when I walked in, he told me that we have to do an ultrasound. So an ultrasound basically is what, you know, it's basically like what a pregnant woman would actually have done. They put the gel and check your abdomen in that very same way. So you're taken to a radiologist, and then they actually do that for you. And when I went in to the radiologist and she, you know, actually did the ultrasound, she discovered that I had the fibroid. There's something about how she relayed that news to me. I think that's why I was really affected, because it was almost like she was mad at me. I was young, I didn't know anything about fibroids, I'd never even heard of them. And I remember she was like, how can you even get to a place where you have fibroids? You're so young. And then I was like, what's that? And she said, yeah, you have a fibroid. And then I was in a robe, yeah, because you have to wear the robe. So she just left me there. And so I had to actually just remove the robe, change into my clothes, wipe the gel off. And then I was like, okay, so what do I do next? I followed her and she said, you have to go back and see your doctor. I'll bring in the results. So I go back in, I sit down with the doctor, and the doctor is like, yeah, you have fibroids. And so what's going to happen is, because you don't have any signs and symptoms, we're actually just going to let this fibroid be. It's small, and what they called it was asymptomatic. So basically I didn't have any symptoms. And majority of the times when women have fibroids, they either have heavy menstrual cycle, a lot of pain, cramps during their periods, they have a protruding belly and things like that. So at that time, I didn't have any symptoms, and he felt like I was young. So he was like, what we are going to do is we're going to do something called watchful waiting. So basically when you do watchful waiting, it's like they're just waiting because they feel like at some point the fibroid might disappear because it's harmless. So I listened to the doctor and I said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. The only problem I had was just that feeling of that mass there. So I went back to living my life, and unfortunately, that's when it actually went downhill. Because when you go back to living your life and you live the same life that actually caused you to have the fibroids, then the fibroids are going to increase in size and in number. What you are supposed to do actually is to make sure that you take care of your health in terms of your nutrition. You eat foods that are high in phytoestrogens, which are like cabbage and cauliflower and broccoli, because these foods help in removing excess estrogen. Also, I was supposed to maintain that physical activity in my lifestyle, like fitness, and also check my hormones regularly, because it is the excessive estrogen that causes the fibroids. But because at that time I was not given that information, of course I went back to living my life, because of course you trust your doctor, you know you're going to be okay. And so when I went back to living my life, lo and behold, the fibroids increased in size and in number. I went from 1 tiny fibroid to 3 fibroids, then 5 fibroids. Then the next time I went to have an ultrasound, because now it was getting worse. Now at this point I was actually showing symptoms. I had a protruding belly, I had really painful cramps, I had very heavy menstrual cycle, and I would actually go for so many days on my menses. And at that time I worked on TV, and I had different shows that I was doing, but there was one major show that I was doing that was a live lottery show called Pambazuka National Lottery Show. And when I was on that show, because the show is live, it was really demanding, but because I had a long menstrual cycle, that meant that every time I was on set, I was probably either having my periods, and that was painful.